Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Marco Meyer, and you are listening to the weekly Dartscast. 180.
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast. We're back with a special episode from the Premier League Media Day on Wednesday. I'm back as well, Alex Moss here, alongside me, my co-host Burton DeWitt. Burton, how are you doing?
I am doing just fine. Recording for the second time this week. Although maybe you can't say the same. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing good, thank you. Yeah, apologies for missing the last show. Work commitments kept me away, but a big shout out to yourself and our producer Hannah and our colleague Matthew Kernan, a top show on the last episode. So well done to you guys. But we're bringing you an extra episode this week. We're fortunate to be part of the Premier League Media Day virtually, and you're going to hear from, for the first time, Michael Van Gerwen on the weekly Dartscast, and also the new master himself, Joe Cullen. But before then, let's get into the Premier League. The new season is here, and every match matters. What's the excitement levels like for the opening night for you in Cardiff?
Well, as we discussed a few weeks ago, I think the change and the freshness adds to the excitement entering. Whether this format works or not is a different question. We discussed what we thought, whether we thought it would a few weeks ago, but we both said that we were really excited to see how it works out and to give it a fair shout. And obviously the first day is going to be that first chance for us to see what's it like having a mini tournament on the night, as opposed to a real league phase as it has always been. As well as this is the first time now in 2 years that a Premier League campaign is kicking off in the traditional way of having a standalone night with a crowd. Last year, of course, we didn't have crowds for a while. The previous year, we did have it start out that way, although it didn't end that way. After a few weeks, obviously, everything shut down. So even though there are some things still unsure and still some questions to be answered that we'll get to in the next question, just to have it's starting on schedule with a crowd as a standalone night is a huge step in the right direction. And adding in this uniqueness of this format, at least in Premier League history, and all the questions about how that will end up affecting the Premier League, I am very excited to see how it works out. Whether that excitement carries through the entire season, we'll see. A lot of it depends on how this brings out the best of the players and how the Premier League takes to this format as a whole. But I think the excitement levels are very high entering Cardiff, and I definitely will be doing my best effort to tune in at least whenever I get off work.
This is the first Premier League opening night with full crowds since Aberdeen 2 years ago. I was lucky to be there for that, lucky to be there for the media day the day before, and we didn't have a Premier League media day last year because of all the restrictions. So having that back today when we're recording, having the opening night back with the full crowd tomorrow when we're recording this in Cardiff, it is good signs, isn't it? And it's definitely got my interest. The opening night of any Premier League season is always one that darts fans are probably going to tune in for. I know there's a bit of competition with the World Seniors this year, but in every other Premier League year, I think a lot of people will tune in for that first night, and maybe some fans, the attention will waver off during the season. Some will stick with it through the duration. Some will come back into it towards Judgment Night when the players would be eliminated, or towards the end of the season when players are battling for those playoff spots and it is getting to the nitty-gritty part of the season, and then, of course, the playoffs at the end of it. So, yeah, to say I'm going to be excited for the whole of the season, I think time's going to tell on that one. We'll see how the new format works out. But, as you say, just to have the full crowds back, and, yeah, we're going to touch on it in the next question about how this season's going to unfold, because we've already had one night pushed back from February to June. So it looks like there are going to be some changes to the schedule. But to have, by and large, to have it every Thursday, to have the full crowds is what the Premier League is all about. And go back to this time last year, the Premier League didn't start in its usual February slot. It didn't start with the crowds. It was behind closed doors in the blocks in Milton Keynes. And yeah, there's probably times when we were thinking, will we ever get back to a Premier League like it was before the pandemic, when we were having the 10,000 plus people in the venues week in, week out? But we are heading back towards that, and the new format with the more matches, more points on offer as well is a good point to raise as well. Usually it's 1 point for a draw, 2 points for a win. This time round, you win a game, you get 2 points. If you get to the final, that's 3 points. And then if you win the night overall, you get 5 points. There's more points on offer for the players this time round, and it's a good thing for the players as well, because if they have a bad week losing the quarter-final game, the following week they've got a chance to build up a lot more points. They've got a chance to pick up 5 points and push themselves back up the table in a quicker fashion than maybe before. So yeah, for me, like you, I'm looking forward to seeing how this new format plays out. But ask me in 3 or 4 weeks whether I'm still a fan. I'm tuning in every week.
And now we'll move on to our first of 2 guests on this Premier League special, and it's with some guy named Michael Van Gerwen, only the 3-time champion of the world and 5-time Premier League champion.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the 5-time Premier League champion, Michael Van Gerwen. Thanks for the time, Michael. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
Doing well, thank you. And you've done pretty much everything in darts, but this is the first time that you've been a guest on our podcast chatting as part of the Premier League Media Day. How do you find these media days? Do you mind doing them?
No, I don't really mind. It's part of it, and you have to take on the chin. Of course, it's sometimes a pain in the ass, but it's just part of your life, isn't it? It's when the Premier League starts, it's going to be Media Day. With the World Champion, you could probably have 3 or 4 Media Days, and that's all part of it. I don't really mind. It's also good for darts in generally and globally, and get on with it. Simple.
Well, we are talking a day before the start of the new Premier League season. It's going to be your 10th consecutive season. What does that achievement mean to you?
I'm already into darts for quite a bit of time, and people underestimate how many experience I probably got for my age. But I love to still do what I do, and that's, I think, the most important thing.
And the Premier League, it started out in the smaller venues in 2005. It's become such a big event now in the huge arenas. What are your memories of those early days of the Premier League? When did you start to get the bug to want to be involved in it?
I probably started to get involved when I was starting the PDC, of course. But it started in smaller venues. But I think the PDC did a great job from taking from the small venues into the massive venues. And you only can do that with a good organization. And I think they did everything right, and I think there's still room to improve even more, but that takes time, man. It's only little steps from here on.
Definitely. Well, everyone remembers your debut season and how that season finished, the incredible 1-3-2 on the ball to beat Phil Taylor in the final of the playoffs. Does that rank for you as the best finish of your career, or are there any others to which top it?
Oh, no, that's probably one of the best finishes, especially because he was putting me under pressure with a phenomenal shot, and I had to finish the 1-3-2. To win, I think it was 10-8 or 11-9, something like that. It was really important for me, and also to beat Phil Taylor always means a lot.
And that was your first Premier League title. You've gone on to win 4 more, in fact 4 in a row between 2016 and 2019. What did it feel like to go on such a long run like that? Did you feel invincible at times?
No, but you have to be good week after week, and you have to be consistent, because you have to play good for 60 weeks in a row, and that's where a lot of players go wrong. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon you have to be good at, and that's exactly what I'm doing and what I did.
Well, the last 2 years they've been affected by the pandemic. We've seen Glenn Durrant, Johnny Clayton picking up the title on their debuts. Can you put your finger on why things haven't gone your way those last 2 years?
Yeah, last year I was an absolute disaster. I didn't play well at all, but things like that happen, unfortunately, and you can turn it back and you can't do anything against it. Forget about it and move on. That's the only thing what you can do as a player.
You had one of the most dominant runs we've ever seen in darts around that time. You're hoovering up the major titles. How difficult has it been during this recent run, missing out and lifting a lot of the trophies?
Yeah, of course, it's tough. But what can you do? You have to adjust yourself and keep focusing yourself towards your game. And I still love what I do, and that's the most important thing. And of course, it takes time to get back on track. But from here on, I want to move on, and that's the only thing what I'm looking forward to.
Looking ahead, what steps have you taken behind the scenes with your practice, your preparation to get back to where you were? Have you been doing anything differently, going back to old routines?
No, I've not been doing a little bit more. Put a lot of work into my game at the moment, and that has to pay out soon. And that's the only thing why I can focus myself on, and that's my darts and the family, of course.
And this year, fingers crossed, we're going to get back to more normality. The Premier League every Thursday in front of those big crowds is a good sign. As a player, that's what the Premier League is all about, isn't it?
Yeah, Premier League is about entertaining the people and play the best darts weekly. And that's what we're going to get. It's going to be a separate little tournament week after week in all different big cities. And yeah, it's something new strategy, new setup, and something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, you mentioned the new format. My co-host Burton says he thinks that the change in format is going to benefit you, as it could give you the chance to build some momentum, picking up 2 or 3 wins a night against the other big boys. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, of course. That's something you can get your confidence rolling. And to play weekly, you have to be weekly good. And that's why most of the time the better players come on top of each other. And just enjoy what you do and keep believing, keep dreaming, and keep going. That's the only thing what you can do.
Looking at the field, along with yourself, they're all proven winners. Joe Cullen was the latest winner at the Masters. How do you look at this current crop of players at the top end? There seems to be more players around now capable of winning these big titles.
Yeah, it's not that someone is really standing above the rest at the moment. You know what I mean? It's of course you got a few A players, but the rest, everyone can beat each other these days. It's not that I think the game has raised like averages wise, but the field is wider, and so you have to make sure you don't underestimate anyone, because they all can play good darts. They don't have the tool cards for nothing.
Definitely. Well, we should touch on the different look to this Premier League as well. It's going to be the first event with the windmill boards being supplied for the PDC. You've been with windmill for 2 years. You must be pleased when you heard the news.
Yeah, of course I'm pleased with this announcement. Of course, I've been working with them on the new board already for quite a long time, and I think they did a phenomenal job to put this great board together, and I think it's going to last longer. I think it's just a better board, and I think hopefully it's going to suit everyone.
2 more questions before I let you go. Away from Yoki, I wanted to touch on darts in the Netherlands and the new TV deal. They're moving away from RTL7 to the streaming service via Play. RTL7, they held the rights for a long time. How do you see this switch going?
I didn't expect it this quickly, to be fair, but I think they're looking for even a bigger partner, and I think Viaplay is a really strong and big partner in mainland Europe, and from there on I think it only can grow. But of course it's going to be tough in the beginning stages, because you need to get the numbers going, but on the end run there's so many good sports involved, and not only that, also films, movies, the total package is right, so that's really important.
And lastly, back to you, fingers crossed 2022, we're going to see that return to the pre-pandemic schedule with the Premier League, the Euro Tours, the World Series. What are you most looking forward to about this year, and what are your main goals for the year?
My main goal is, of course, to win the World Championship, but every tournament I'm competing in, I want to perform and deliver my A game, and that's why that's the only thing, and the rest will come automatically afterwards if you keep doing well.
Well, Michael, it's a pleasure to chat to you. Appreciate you taking the time, and wish you all the best for the opening night in the Premier League for the rest of the season and what else is to come in 2022.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to Michael for joining us. Now, continuing our talk of the Premier League, on the week of the new season, we have seen the calendar take a hit already. The night in Berlin moved from night 4 in February all the way to a Monday in June 13th. And 10 other nights are now to be confirmed as the schedule. Well, the matches are all set other than nights 8 and 16, but the venues and the nights are not. Thoughts on the change to the schedule?
Definitely put a spanner in the works, hasn't it, for the PDC's plans for the Premier League. It's going to get off to a hot start tomorrow night in Cardiff with the full crowd back. But going forward, it is a case of watch this space, isn't it, as to how this Premier League season does progress over the weeks and months ahead. And we saw yesterday when we were talking the announcement for the fixtures. Buried at the bottom of that release was the news about Berlin on February the 24th being pushed back to June the 13th, and after March 17th, the night in Nottingham, which is now going to be night 6, we imagine. We don't have any fixtures for April and May, but fingers crossed those dates, a lot of those dates which were due to be held in March, end of March, April and May, are going to stick as they are. But I think the PDC are probably being a little bit cautious on things at the moment, and that's a big reason why I think the lineup wasn't announced until Monday this week, because there are a lot of things still to be confirmed with this Premier League as far as the venues, and it's not an easy event to organise in these times. Yes, there's a lot of restrictions that are being lifted, but you look at an event like this, it's not just a week-long event in one place. You've got 17 different venues, 17 different nights, and 6 or 7 different countries. So there is a lot of work to do for the PDC and everyone behind the scenes to make sure that this event can be back to how it was with a full capacity crowd. They don't want to put on any nights behind closed doors. So it's unfortunate that the Berlin night got pushed back. It's good news that it is going to still go ahead, fingers crossed, in June, and maybe that is going to be when the finals night takes place for the Premier League, and hopefully we'll see all the other nights stay as they were. I think Newcastle was going to be the finals night at the end of May. If that's still the case, that night goes ahead on that date, then you've got 2 or 3 weeks before potentially the new finals night venue, Berlin. But yeah, hopefully we don't see a lot of these venues change dates, especially for the fans as well, because some of them would have had tickets dating back to 2020, so they've been waiting a while to go to these nights, go to watch the Premier League, and a lot of them maybe would have booked the travel accommodation and things like that. So yeah, the sooner we can get confirmation, the better, I think, and fans can carry on with their bookings or amend them as soon as they can. But yeah, it's good news that we've got the first 6 nights in the diary, and I'd like to think in the next few weeks we'll see a lot more of those dates stay as they are, get confirmed, and maybe 1 or 2 other changes, but hopefully not many more than that.
Yeah, and a lot of this goes back to what Barry Hearn said when we had him on the show just after the lockdown started almost 2 years ago now. And it was, I don't know if it's still the longest interview we had after the one the other day, but I think it probably was. And it's because he said because there was nothing else to do, he was happy to talk to us all day if necessary, just because what else was there to do when lockdown was starting? But he said, the biggest thing is, what are the governments saying in the places where the PDC was putting on events? And as those restrictions eased, then events would start to come back. Whether it would be with a crowd or not depends on those regulations. But now, because you can have crowds almost anywhere else, and you can have with very limited restrictions, we're seeing most of the events go ahead as scheduled, but there's still, especially with the Omicron surge, that possibility that things will have to shift. And as Germany has more restrictions than a lot of other countries, I think it made sense to push it out and wait and see. And if you have to move it somewhere else, move it somewhere else. But I think that's the last ditch, or the last option would be to move it to a different venue. Because there's also, of course, a bunch of European Tour events that the PDC will hope to also have to stage in Germany as the season goes along. But there's been more good news than bad news the last few weeks. And we've seen right before we started recording, Denmark stating that all of their restrictions are now going to be completely removed. And we're seeing Britain move in that direction as well. Most of the United States has been moving in that direction, many other European countries. And it seems to be that we're finally reaching the point where, with confidence, we can say, yes, COVID's going to be around, but we are going to know how to live with it and work with it. Things can change very quickly, and we've seen that. But the PDC have figured out a way to push forward and maintain that little level of flexibility that is needed. And that a couple years ago, we wouldn't have even thought, a night's getting postponed other than due to a major snowstorm in the southwest of England. That's unheard of. Now, flexibility is the new normal. We have to be able to accept that, yes, we might have plans to go somewhere. Yes, we might have booked accommodation and booked travel. But because this virus is still out there, things might not go according to plan. And same on the player side. But the PDC have figured out a way to do this flexibly and hopefully make sure that every night might not go ahead as scheduled when scheduled, but will go ahead as close to as scheduled as possible. And in the case of Berlin, postponed a few months, but just pushed to the back end of the calendar, with everything else taking its place as night 4 becomes night 3, night 5 becomes night 4, night 6 becomes night 5, and most of it hopefully might just be to be confirmed right now, but will be confirmed in due course.
And now move on to our next guest on the show. It is with the newly crowned Masters champion and the Premier League debutant for 2022. Here's our chat with Joe Cullen. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the newly crowned Masters champion, Joe Cullen. Thanks for the time, Joe. How you doing?
weekend. I've definitely had worse weekends, so yeah, I'm doing really well at the minute.
Glad to hear it. I know it's been a hectic last 4 days or so. Can you put into words what this week has been like for you since winning the Masters, getting the Premier League call up? Have your feet touched the ground yet?
Yeah. Obviously, days like today, we're at the media day today. Obviously, doing all the promos and the launches and stuff for the Premier League. So, it's days like today when it's sort of hitting home a bit now. Obviously, it was nice to get the win at the weekend, regardless of the Premier League. But to get sort of the double dose of good news was, even more better. Wanted to be in the Premier League for a long time, so finally here. Yeah,
you mentioned you're talking to us from Cardiff as part of the Premier League Media Day. This time last week, as you prepared to play in the Masters, did you think this was a real possibility with the field having not been announced yet?
Yeah, I think the PDC maybe set a precedent last year with putting Johnny in, obviously, after he won the Masters. So I knew sort of afterwards, when I'd won, I thought I could be in and it'd be pretty difficult to leave me out, but there's still a little element of doubt until they actually confirm it. So, when I heard the news from Michael Bridge that I was definitely in, it was special.
Well, let's circle back. We last had you on at the end of June, and I know the second half of last year was a very tough time for you and your family. Darts-wise, you had a semi-final in the European Championship. How did you reflect on that second half of the season?
Yeah, it was just what it was. I didn't care really. It was Darts was totally secondary, so it was just a case of going and doing what I could at times. It was really secondary, but sometimes it was to my benefit. I didn't really didn't really care about that. So sometimes I was playing well, like you mentioned there, the Europeans. Couldn't care less if I lost first game 6-0. So I think the bad news and the sort of high that me and my family went through was sometimes it was detrimental, but sometimes it was to my benefit. So like I say, it's out of the way now, and obviously after the weekend I can push forward now this year.
Definitely. Well, let's look to this year. After the World Championship, it's a long break for the players, the month off before the Masters. How did you spend that month off? Did you take a lot of time off, or were you keen to prepare for the new season?
No, I took most of it off, to be honest. After I lost my game at the World, I don't think I picked up a dart until about 10 days before the Masters. I think I had an exhibition, so that was the first time I sort of started practicing and looking towards the Masters. So the sort of 3 plus weeks off, it was much needed, especially after a hectic back end of the last year.
Well, on to the Masters this past weekend, and what start it was, dropping just 3 legs on the first 2 days. You beat Daryl Gurney, Gary Anderson, 99, 106 averages. The game with Gary in particular, how proud were you of that performance?
Yeah, it was good. I said in other interviews, to beat Gary 10-9 with an 81 average I would have took, but to do it in the fashion that I did and playing as well as I did, even more pleasing for myself to show the hard work I've been putting in is paying off. And yeah, I think it set the foot in for Sunday's play, and I think it really gave me that belief that I could go on and win it.
Definitely, and we often see players, they put in a big average and then their level drops in the next game. If someone would have said you'd play Michael Van Gerwen in the quarterfinals, you'd average 92 and win 10-7, would you have believed them?
Well, I think Mike's been struggling a little bit himself, but it's not all about averages. I spoke to my brother afterwards, and he just said that it was a scrappy game. He said that every time I needed sort of a big score, I seemed to find one. So, people like Michael and the people who've been at the top of the game for a long time, they talk a lot about timing, and I think that's what won me the game against Michael. The timing of the big shots and the pressure shots.
Yeah, that's right, and you said it yourself in one of your interviews after you played better against Michael and lost. But when you're up there on the stage and you're midway through the game, do you have one eye on Michael waiting to see if he goes through the gears? How hard is it to focus on your own game?
Yeah, I think that's one of the benefits that Michael's got without him actually doing anything, because if he's off his game, it's a chance to jump all over it, because he could turn it around at any point, just as like Gary could in the previous round. So it's one of those. You do focus on what Michael's doing, because especially if he's not playing well. I think I put a bit of pressure on myself early in the match to try jump on him, and I think it was detrimental to my game a little bit. So I think I relaxed a little bit after that and just let the darts go. And at the second session, I think I won 4-1 and went into the next break 6-4. So it was I knew I was playing well at that point.
Well, that win put you into the final session of the Masters. There was a few hours break between your quarter-final and semi-final. How did you spend that time to make sure you were as best prepared as possible?
Yeah, well, it was only a short turnaround, and I toyed with the idea of maybe just staying at the venue and just relaxing at the venue, but it had been a long day as it was just then, so I took time to go back to my room, had a quick something to eat, just sort of an hour. I just laid, messing on social media, that sort of thing, just downtime really. Just to get myself back up for the game against Holiday.
You then get past Jose de Sousa, 11-8. You're into your first TV final in the PDC, and not a long break before the final because you played the second semi-final. What do you remember about that short time between games on Sunday night?
Yeah, well, I remember going back up obviously after I just beat Jose. I think no sooner had I sat down, the players' marshal was telling me it was a bull up in 5 minutes for the final, and I was like, I've only just come off. It just went, well, that's what you get if you get to the final. So that's just the nature of it. It was new ground for me, so I can't say much more really. It's one of those, first final you're playing, you want to win it. You don't want any sort of mental scarring going forward. So to play my first TV final and come out as a victor, I couldn't ask for much more really.
Yeah, and it was a close final with Dave Chisnell. Both of you bidding to win your first TV title, and you're not the first, you won't be the last player to miss those match starts in a TV final. Just what were the emotions like as you closed in on the finish line?
Yeah, I was pretty calm, to be honest. It was just a case of I'm not keen on tops and tens, and I was calm the whole day, or whole weekend really, and then when I sort of knew that I had a chance to win, that's when sort of the nerves kicked in a little bit, as you could see by the wild attempts at double 10. But I knew I was playing well enough to give myself more chances, and I knew when I left the double that I'm more comfortable on, I would get the job done, and double 18 just one dart straight in.
Well, we have to ask, what was more nerve-wracking, playing that final game on Bullseye with David Seaman, or going for the title-winning double in the Masters?
Well, it's a toss-up, to be honest. David actually texted me afterwards as well, and he said something similar. He said, well done, but it's still not a patch on Bullseye. But yeah, it's a bit different. Obviously, that was for me personally, and the other one was for charity. So they're both important. But I'd say I was more nervous for the double 10s than the double 18 than I was on Bullseye. But the double 18 I was fine.
Fair enough. Yeah, you're right. The double 18 goes in, and we saw the emotions afterwards, going to hug your dad, him singing the Walking in a Joe Cullen Wonderland with the crowd, and then we see you two together on the stage. How special were those moments?
Yeah. Obviously, with what's gone on, it was nice to have my dad there to see me win on my first TV title. Obviously, it's bittersweet that my mum could be there as well, but that the win was for my mum, and like I say, to celebrate it with my dad, it was nice. Yeah.
Well, a special moment indeed, and let's look ahead. It's going to be a battle of the last two Masters champions, you against Johnny Clayton, opening the show tomorrow in Cardiff. We know you two get on very well. We expect the crowd will be on Johnny's side, but is Johnny the perfect opponent for you for your debut, having someone you know so well?
Yeah, again, a cliche. There's no easy games. It's Premier League, and if I'm honest, to start against the defending champion, who's a Welshman in Cardiff, I honestly can't wait for it. Obviously, it'll be a partisan crowd towards Johnny, but I think we play some better stuff when I'm under it, so I genuinely can't wait to get going.
Well, you might be able to get some of the crowd on your side with the walk-on, which we should mention as well. Don't Look Back in Anger by Oasis. You've had a few different walk-ons in the past. What persuaded you to switch to that one? Because you must be pleased with the reaction it's been getting from the crowds. Yeah,
but I'm a massive fan of Oasis anyway. One of my first managements I walk on to, I think it was Town Called Mars when we first started, and it just seemed the natural sort of progression as to move to a band that I liked, and obviously that song, I think nearly everybody knows the song anyway, so it goes down really well, and I think it was somewhere similar time wise after the Manchester, the MEN Arena thing that went on. They did the concert thing after that, and the Don't Look Back in Anger was sort of the song for that. So it was in the sort of public there and then. So I thought it was a good time to change and walk onto that. And as you can see from the world, it's been a massive hit.
Yeah, great song. And lastly, away from the darts, we won't mention Manchester United, but when we last spoke, it was during the Euros, and you said you were the least patriotic England fan. Did you manage to stay that way, or by the time they got to the final, had you been swept in with all the excitement?
No, I stayed that way. Like I say, I'm a Man United fan. I've never been sort of the national team fan. I watched it with my son. My son loves football. He was a big England fan. I wanted them to win it, but I didn't lose no sleep over him not winning it.
Well, hopefully they can go one step further in the World Cup later this year. And congratulations again on the Masters win at the weekend. And we wish you all the best for your debut Premier League season and what else is to come in 2022.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex. Cheers for talking to me.
Thanks again to Joe for joining us. And we have our quarter-final lineup for the opening night of the Premier League in Cardiff. Let's have your quarter-final picks and who you think is going to win the night overall. And we'll start off with the first game of the night is the defending champion, Johnny Clayton, against the newcomer, Joe Cullen. How do you see the first one going?
What a match to start up things off. You're coming off the year of the Ferret, Johnny Clayton, winning the Masters to get in last year, then obviously winning the Premier League on top of that, and only a couple other majors at the back end of the year, including his first ranking one at the World's Grand Prix, not in Dublin. But this year, maybe it's the year of the rock star because he followed in the other JC's footsteps by winning the Masters to get into the field. And like I said on the show on earlier this week, there are a lot of similarities in that both of them, they've moved to be top 16 players, but they had really stagnated there for a couple years before last year Johnny winning the Masters and this year Joe winning, Joe winning the Masters this year. And that lifted Johnny to that next level. This has now lifted Joe to that next level. Both of them have a lot to prove, though. It was a good performance in Milton Keynes for Johnny Clayton, but he didn't retain the title. It was obviously a glorious performance for Joe. I think both are going to come in with confidence, but both are going to come in with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder entering this event for different reasons. But I think that experience for Johnny Clayton is going to make the difference. So I'm going him to get over the line. I'll go Johnny to get over the line, 6 legs to 4.
Well, once again, you've been reading my sheet of paper because I had the exact same winner, the exact same scoreline. But it's a good game to start the season, isn't it? You've got two great friends off the hockey. We know that, and the two of them have had some good battles in the past on TV. I remember the game at the World Championship behind closed doors a couple of years ago, Joe Cullen pulling out that 100 checkout with the two tops in the decider. They've had a close game at the World Grand Prix a couple of years ago as well. But we've seen Johnny Clayton, what a year he had in 2021. And I think having that Cardiff crowd behind him is probably going to give him the favour in this one. I think it is going to be close, like you say. I think Joe is going to give a good account of himself. But I think it's going to be Johnny Clayton that gets the edge on this one. Like you, I'm going 6-4 to the Ferret.
Now, second of 7 matches on the night, although we're only going to discuss 4 of them. I guess we're discussing 5 because we're picking the winner as well. But second of the 4 quarterfinals, Gerwen Price, who had to pull out last year due to a positive COVID test against James Wade, the man who replaced him in the field. How do you see this one?
I'm back in the home double. I'm going to go with both the Welsh players to get through their first game of the night and set up another meeting between them. They seem to be playing each other pretty much every week on TV. This is going to be twice in the space of 4 or 5 days. So, these two getting to know each other pretty well. Like you say, this is Gerwen Price's return to the Premier League, one of 3 players in for this year, 5 players out because we're down from 10 to 8. And I think he will be relishing the opportunity to play in the Premier League again because after missing it last year through no fault of his own, testing positive for the virus, this is a title that, much like Peter Wright, they've not got it on their CV. They are the top 2 players in the world, and this is one of the biggest events there is. So I've got him getting the win on this one. I'm going to go 6-3 to Gerwen Price.
Yeah, not just does he not have the title on his CV, he hasn't even made the playoffs. He and Joe Cullen, of course, are the only 2 in the field who have never even made the final. Gerwen not even making the semifinal, though. If he wins this, he'll at least make the nightly semifinal. But I'm not going to pick him to win it. I'm going to go Wade to pull the upset. I just think this format, I said on the show earlier this week that I think this format will be best for Michael Van Gerwen, but I also think it will be pretty good for James Wade because, well, he's James Wade. Any format is good for him. And I just think he'll take to it a little bit quicker than Gezi will. And I think on the first night, I'll go Wade to nip it 6-3. Gezi will average over 100, but Wade will hit the right shot at the right time like he's been doing for nearly 2 decades now.
Third quarterfinal, and it is Peter Wright against Michael Smith, a repeat of the World Championship final last month. How do you see this game going?
I think Michael Smith is going to get his revenge. I think he's just going to come out like he did in Milton Keynes with something to prove. And Chizzy ended up knocking him out at the quarterfinal stage, but he had a great last 16 match and a good performance, though not as good in that quarterfinal. He just got beaten by someone who also was playing with something to prove. But for Peter Wright, I think he'll play fairly well, but I think something, he'll have the walk-on first time he'll be introduced as a 2-time world champion on Sky. And I just think Michael Smith is just going to play one of those matches that, he's been playing a lot of recently, and I don't think Peter Wright will hit the ground running as quickly. I'm going to go 6-1. I don't think Peter will play poorly. I think he'll come into the match, but I think Michael Smith's going to average close to 110, and it'll be over before you know it.
Yeah, I think a lot of this will come down to Peter Wright and the setup of darts that he uses, because he went with something different at the Masters at the weekend, and he didn't play badly, did he? 96 average. I'd certainly take that in a best of 19 game if I was playing, but we know that he can play better. We know that he can average 113 in the last 10 legs of a world final. We know that he can average 104 for a whole tournament at the World Match Play. So I think a lot of this will come down to the setup that Peter Wright goes for. Does he go back to something that he's more comfortable with, that he's used in the past, or does he continue to tinker with his darts and use something different? That we'll find out on Thursday night. But like you, I think there is going to be revenge for Michael Smith. He's back in the Premier League. We spoke to him last week. He was keen to be back in, and he's got his wish. He's back in, and I think he'll want to put on a show, and there's no better place to start than getting revenge over Peter Wright after he just lost in that world final to him. So I'm going to go with Michael Smith as well. I'm going a little bit closer. I'm going to go 6-4 to the Bully Boy.
And last of the quarterfinals, Michael van Gerwen trying to win that, trying to regain the Premier League title before the season's over, going against Gary Anderson, another former champion. How do you see this one?
Well, I haven't done a draw yet, so I might go 5. No, I'm only joking. I think this is going to be a close one, and these two do have some great battles in the Premier League. I think there was one video doing the rounds of one from a few years ago, and there was, I think it was Michael van Gerwen was on for a 9-darter, and Gary Anderson takes out 170 one leg like that. So these two are capable of producing fireworks with each other. They do seem to bring the best out of each other at times, and hopefully we're going to have a cracker in the last quarter final between these two. And a lot of people were saying, should Gary Anderson have been in the Premier League? Well, here's his first chance to prove why he should be in, because when he is playing at his best or near his best, he is box office and he is very much worth watching. So hopefully we're going to see that Gary Anderson during the Premier League, and hopefully it starts with this opening night against Michael van Gerwen. As far as who I think is going to win it, I think this will probably go all the way. I think it's going to go to a last leg decider. So I'm going to go 6-5 to Michael van Gerwen.
A lot of what you say I agree with, but we haven't seen Gary Anderson play at or near his best in a while, and we haven't seen Michael van Gerwen bring the best out of Gary Anderson in a while. If you look back, it wasn't that long ago that over 25 matchups, Gary averaged over a ton in 21 of them, and the other 3 of them were north of 98. In the last 15 matchups that they've had, Gary's only managed to win one and draw one, and recently it's an exception when he's averaging over 100. Over the last 14 of those, he's averaged over 100 3 times. And it wasn't that those were well north of 100. They were 100.03, 100.33, and 100.68 at the Grand Slam last year in a match that was, I'm amazed Gary averaged that high, because he missed a lot of chances in it and struggled at times in it. He ended up only losing 10-8. He's really struggled against Michael for some time now. And they had the draw in the Premier League last year, and he was able to win one of the 2 the year before. But those are exceptions. He's been in the mid to low 90s in most of the other matches, and has looked like Michael's getting to him. And there's been nothing in what I've seen from Gary recently that makes me think he's about to turn the table over him. So I'm going Michael van Gerwen to win this, and I don't think it's going to be close. I think MVG will win it something like 6-2.
And then this is a first for the Premier League. We are going to get semi-finals and finals during the regular league season each night. So who do you think is going to come out on top at the end of the night? Who is going to be the last man standing in Cardiff?
Ooh. Well, I can tell you 4 that it's not going to be. Before I picked to lose in the first round. And I do realize Michael Van Gerwen will take the very rare feat of being a guest on our show and me picking him on the same night. Not something I do often, though Joe Cullen falls into the long tradition of me picking against our guest. But I'm not picking Michael Van Gerwen to win the title. So he, there we go. I'm continuing our tradition, or my tradition. I'm actually going to go with Michael Smith to win what I guess would be a second televised title. I think he's going to kick on from that win over Peter Wright by winning the Michael Derby in the semifinal, and then whether it's against Johnny Clayton or James Wade in the final, Michael Smith is going to get over the line. And at the end of night one, it'll be Michael Smith atop the table.
Yeah, I like how you say these are going to be TV titles. We could come to the end of the season and we could be talking about Michael Smith as a 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10-time TV title winner. So just needs that one major title to tick off the list at that point. And it could be the Premier League at the end of the season. I'm going to go with a home favourite. I'm going to send the home fans happy in Cardiff. I'm going to go Gerwen Price to get over the line in this one. And his return to the Premier League after missing it in 2021, I think he's going to come back with a bang. And he's going to beat Michael Van Gerwen in the final. It's going to be a battle of two of the world's top three in the final. And I've got it going to the Iceman.
And anything else for this week?
Got to say, big thank you to the PDC, Dave and Josh, for helping us put us in touch with Michael and Joe for the show. Appreciate that. We are getting close to the 100 mark for the 128 tour card holders that we've had on the show. We're up to 95, so just getting close, 5 off the magic number. And what a rest of the week we have in store. We've got the opening night of the Premier League, the World Seniors, the first couple of Pro Tours this weekend as well. So lots to come over the next few days. And hopefully we've got you as ready as we can with the last 2 episodes that we've brought you this week. And of course, we'll be back next week to review it all, look ahead to what's to come. And I don't think I need to say it because there is plenty of darts to choose this week, but do enjoy the darts.
And until you do enjoy the darts, you better be hanging tight. But do we want to talk about King of the Hill competition?
Yes, we are going to be doing a Premier League competition during the season. So there'll be some details on that. We just need to iron them out. They'll be on our Twitter page. So go and check that out at Weekly Dartscast. We'll try and get a prize for you guys as well. So whoever does the best will pick up a prize at the end of it. So keep an eye out on our Twitter. We're going to finalise the details and we'll get them out there as soon as possible. They probably will be out by the time you're listening to this. So get involved in the competition and you've got a chance of winning a prize.
And possibly even multiple chances, since it is a 16-week season. That might just work perfectly to split up in half. But hang tight for that information. Hang tight for just a little bit longer and enjoy the darts because there's plenty of it this weekend, including a world champion to be crowned.